Oh my goodness. We are live. Welcome to Inspiring Your Best Life, episode 12. Just moving right along. And I am so excited today to have my friend Patricia Cimino on. She is an empowerment coach. And what I love is that her niche is really working with entrepreneurs to help them have the success that they really want. And besides that, you are just a fabulous human. I have been so blessed when we met, and I'll just tell a really quick story. I met Patricia because she was doing an interview with a woman that I had taken a course with, and this was like over 3 years ago. And I just like your energy. There was something about you that I said, okay, I'm reaching out to her because I want to know more about her. So we did that. And then recently you moved to Florida. Maybe not recently, but you moved to Florida and I'm in Florida and we get to meet in person. And it was just at least for me, it was instant connection.
Absolutely. We're kindred souls.
Absolutely. So I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So I got to ask you, the first thing that I just want to know is how did you get here? How did you get to, because everybody has a story and typically for most people becoming a life coach of some sort, because there's all these specialties, which I think is so cool because everybody's going to resonate with somebody around who they are as a person or what your specialty is. But not a lot of people decide to be a life coach. They sort of evolve into that. So what was your journey?
Yeah. So it's so fascinating because my first open door to personal development was in my first job out of college. I worked for a major hair care company and they sent us to Dale Carnegie workshops and seminars. And I loved it. I won all these awards and I just was eating it up. And as a matter of fact, they offered me a position to work with Dale Carnegie. This is a long time ago, but I was no, I'm working for this Fortune 500 company. I was in sales and I didn't see the connection, even though I felt so passionate. I loved learning about personal development but I didn't go down that route. And so my journey was in sales and marketing. I worked for, big companies and then I worked for family business and then I had my own businesses. But what led me into coaching was that I couldn't figure out, it wasn't until I was moving and we were packing all of our stuff and I have a bookcase and I have all these journals and I was looking at my journals and they were super positive for everybody else, but super negative to myself. And so all of the journals were littered with negativity towards myself. And I thought to myself, now this is really something. How come I'm so positive for everybody else and I'm so terrible to myself and my own brain? And I wanted to figure that out. And I did a lot of research and I read a lot of books and I spoke to a lot of different people. And I ended up finding a program that really helped me with mindset, with learning what is actually going on between the temples, and it really shifted me and changed me and everything radically shifted since then. And it was funny because a friend of mine said, well, you've kind of always been that way. You've always been kind of a life coach. But I certainly didn't feel it internally, right? I mean, I love reading the books and everything, but then internally I wasn't doing it for me. And so that's what I needed to get to the bottom of that. And when I did, then I was able to go out. Once I realized this, once you learn something new that is so effective and transforms your life, you want to offer it, you want to help as many people as possible. And so that's where my journey began. And that was in 2012. And, over the course of years, it's changed, shifted and changed. I started first in health and wellness but I've always had a special place in my heart for entrepreneurs because I come from a family of entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. My siblings are all entrepreneurs. I've had my own business prior to coaching. So there's something about that, the grit, the all of that stuff that you have to go through to open business, sustain a business, keep it moving, There's a lot to it. And I saw my father, he was a great, inspiring person to me that did that and was successful. And he didn't know the language. He had a lot of odds against him, and he did it. And so he's kind of like my inspiration piece. When I have all those challenging days, like I think about him, and then I'm like, okay, I gotta take the diaper off and put the big girl pants on. Right?
Yeah, and as an entrepreneur, like it feels like you've just got to do that on a really regular basis because it's not something that's taught. So there's so much unknown, which opens up, this whole floodgate of all those feelings that if you hadn't dealt with, they're definitely going to come up now so that you
yeah. And that's why I think it's so important. And I just posted this yesterday, actually.
I know.
I have a coach. I always have a coach in my pocket, right? I always have someone that's helping me work through my own stuff, my own limiting beliefs, because if I just leave it up to myself, like I might start to believe some of the negative jargon again, right? And so I think it's very valuable I think everybody should have a coach. Listen, that's just the way that I feel. But because you can get to that end point. You want to take, the slow ride, and you want to get there faster. And for me, if there's someone that can help me get there faster, I'm all over that. And that's the same thing that I feel for like people that come and want my help to help them. It's just going to help them get there faster. You don't know what you don't know. Like if you're in your blind, you don't know. And like if you're somebody standing here in your blind spot, that's how the analogy I use. It's like being in a bottle, right? You can't see the label on the outside, but the person standing on the outside can see the label. They can read it.
Sure. So two things about that. One is obviously what you're saying now. And I love that post yesterday because it is so important. We're always evolving. And I've been talking about this a lot in my posts recently. We're always evolving. And as we evolve, there's continuous opportunity for stuff to come up because I kind of look at us and I'm sure you've heard this before. We're like an onion.
Yes.
And there's like all these layers. And so we can fall into the trap of having gone to therapy, done coaching, dealt with some stuff. And you're like, okay, I'm good. And then all of a sudden you start to grow and expand in whatever way that is. And some of that stuff like comes back. Well, like maybe a little different, but it comes back. And so, like you said, it's very easy if you don't have somebody to sort of help you and guide you to make that happen. And then the second thing that struck me about what you said was just, I think it had to do with the entrepreneur. I wish I had written it down. But the importance of just, in terms of what you do, is really helping people to kind of know and understand what some of those roadblocks can be. And you've lived it because, having seen it all around you, you know what you had to deal with. And so that's just really, really wonderful. And I agree. When we are in our lives and when we get a really good experience, I know that was what led me to become more of a law of attraction coach because that's what resonated with me. I already believed that stuff. And then when it like all came together and I could see how it changed my life, I'm like, whoa, that's important stuff. There's people out there who could really benefit from that.
Super important. Yes, absolutely.
So I'm going to ask you this question, but I kind of feel like you've already answered it, which is, what do you think sets you apart from other coaches?
Yeah, I do think it is that mindset piece because I think there's a lot of different types of coaches out there. And one of the biggest things that sets me apart is that I do causal coaching versus symptom coaching. So what I mean by that is I want to get to the root of why you're doing what you're doing or why you're not doing what you should be doing, right? There's a lot of symptom coaching going on, meaning like they'll give you the strategy, go take these actions. And while that's all great, if you're taking all this action, but in the back of your mind, you have a seed of doubt or a seed of something that is negative, that's not serving you, you're not going to get the same result as if you had this seed of belief in yourself, this seed of confidence, right? So it's very important to know, like, it's important to take action, absolutely. But you have to come from a good feeling place to take inspired action. Otherwise, you're just kind of treading and staying in the same spot, right?
Yeah. No, it's the difference between understanding who you've been and what sets, like, what drives that, and who you need to become. And in order for you to become that new person, you've definitely got to understand what are some of those real core beliefs, and how do you go about A, understanding them, and B, changing them.
Yeah,
Because
yeah. And one of the big things, and a lot of it's my clients will tell you, is that I'm always telling them, focus on what you want, because a lot of the times we focus on what we don't want.
absolutely.
So a simple, small differentiator is we get focused on failing versus focusing on the success.
Yeah.
Now that sounds really like simple. There's a major difference between
Yeah.
that,
Well,
right?
we're conditioned. I mean, that's part of the conditioning or the programming, which is to always kind of be looking at what's not working, or what's already happened, or, how could we have done better, but not from a standpoint of actually looking at what you want, but kind of still focusing on what's back here. And so that totally resonates with me because, from an Abraham Hicks perspective, it's always about, you're creating your reality moving forward. So if you're looking at your reality as is, that's already manifested.
Right.
Where do you want to go? And, anytime you have a conversation with somebody, I agree with you. You find that people are much more adept to tell you what's not working, what's not going well, what they don't want, versus like, what do you really want it to be like?
Right. And I think you just touched on a really important point, and it really plays big on when you're making decisions. So a lot of people will make their decisions based on their past versus making their decision based on the future. Where do they want to go? And that too is a big, big differentiator. So I do a lot of visualizations with my clients, and I do it up front in the beginning so we can kind of crystallize what it is that where it is they want to go, like in their heart of hearts, and then move them continuously, having them move towards that direction, right, of their future self.
Right.
Their future self. How would she behave? How would she show up? What would she tolerate? What wouldn't she tolerate? And it sounds kind of, for someone hearing that for the first time, it might sound really foreign, like it did to me. It sounded really foreign, like my future self. What are you talking about? But once you start to play in that space, it gets to be almost like a game, and it gets to be fun.
Right. No, absolutely. And it's so interesting because I think that we're getting to a point where more people understand that versus in the past. That the importance of really feeling into what it is. I think before, the whole idea of visualization was like having this picture in your mind and, putting it out there. But the whole, like, really stepping into what would that feel like, and be like for you, you know?
And
Um,
it's fun. It's interesting because athletic coaches have been using visualization for decades, for a long, 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 long time. So it's not anything that's very new. I mean, it's just becoming more and more mainstream as far as like more people talking about the benefits of it.
yes.
And now with this whole movement of yoga and meditation and the way things are changing, I think people, the pandemic has given us a good reason to slow down and really go inward and
Yes.
get to really find where your personal power lies when you do that.
Right. And you know what else I think is fascinating is that the science is really starting to catch up with it as well.
Yeah. Quantum physics, it's there.
Oh my God. And I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. Joe
Of
Dispenza.
course.
Oh, love him. He, like, one of the reasons that I love him so much is that my core beliefs related to why meditation works, law of attraction, all of those things that were just sort of understood on faith. Like, he has done so much research to actually show exactly like how that works,
Yeah.
and why it works, and the importance of it. And so, yeah, it's interesting. All right, so talk to me a little bit about the things that are most important, because as you know, I'm also a fairly new entrepreneur. And I think that, I mean, everything we've talked about certainly is part of, the strategies that I'm using. But one of the things that I think comes up a lot is this, when you're doing something new, there are two things that you have to deal with. Like, I won't say on a constant basis, but they come up. One is fear, and the other one is uncertainty. So, talk to us a little bit about how you kind of view that.
Yeah. I view with the fear, it's like fear is always going to be there. And we have a couple choices, right? We can either embrace it or we can resist it, right? And when we resist it, we're taking a negative emotion and we're adding another negative on top of it. So it's like a double negative. So it's like a double whammy, right? That will never get you where you want to go. But if you embrace it and just allow it to be there and just notice it and almost like befriend it,
Yep. Yep.
it actually puts you into a flow state.
Yep. Yep.
And uncertainty, this is interesting. And it's something that this year, uncertainty, right? Pandemic, who would have thought that we would be in this situation? But the fact is that we're never really certain about things outside of us, ever. I could walk outside, get in my car, get hit by another car, and die, right? That certainly isn't something that I can be certain will not happen.
Right.
So anything outside of me, I have no control over. But I do have control over or certainty over myself, what I want to think and believe, how I want to feel, who I want to surround myself with, what practices I want to incorporate into my life, routines, rituals, what I want to let go of. I have control over all of that. I have control over, how I want to feel about other people's opinions of me. I don't need to give my power away to their opinion, right? I get to let them keep their opinion and I get to keep moving forward. So I think that's the biggest thing that I would say. And it's been my life journey to keep working that principle too. Like, no control over other people. Only control I have is over myself.
Right.
Only certainty I have is over what I want for my life, how I want to think and believe, how I want to show up.
Mm-hmm. And I have to say that that's just so powerful, because you're absolutely right. Like, change is the only thing that's certain. It's happening all the time and all around us. And this webinar that I was on yesterday was talking about that. As soon as you become certain, like, okay, so you want to become, like, he's a blogger, and so he starts writing these blogs, and he doesn't have any followers, and he's like, all this uncertainty, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? What am I going to do? And so all he knows is what he can do, which is, if I'm going to be a blogger, I just need to keep doing blogs. And as he kept doing blogs, things started working and growing, and then he started, like, getting comfortable. But then as soon as you get comfortable, there's an expansion there, because something comes up that makes you want to go, okay, well, maybe I really need to focus a little bit more intently on this area, which is, again, uncertain, because you don't know what the feedback's going to be. You don't know. Now you've created a following, but how many of those are going to resonate with what you're now doing? Like, again, just a level of uncertainty that, like you said, is always there. It's just, how do you manage it? And to your point, the only way that you can manage it. I'm sorry, hold on, my dog went from under my desk, the light. Okay, I need to be plugged in because it said low battery. There we go. The only thing that we have control over is ourselves. And I will add to that, one of the things that resonates even more and more is this idea of present moment, because that's also the only thing that you really have control over, is this moment right now.
Yeah, totally. And I used to teach yoga, and I idea of body awareness and body intelligence and your breath and using your breath as really the tunnel or the vessel, like get to your the tunnel to get to your vessel, right? For me, I feel like that breath piece of it really takes you from that place of your most ancient part of your brain, your amygdala, where you're in fight or flight and you're out of sort. When you connect to your breath, you then connect to your prefrontal cortex where all your higher level thinking takes place. And that's the place that we want to live in. That's the place that we want to cultivate our future from, cultivate what we want to think and believe from, because that's that calm space that is also connected to your truth, that's here.
Yeah. Who you are and your connection to your higher power, source, God, whatever that is. So I'm gonna just I don't know if I just saw it yesterday. I don't know how it came up in my emails, but I saw this movie that was made called Milton's Secret. So you should look it up because it was a movie that was made based on Eckhart Tolle's teachings. And so it's the story of a family and exactly what we're talking about, the idea of present moment and the idea of using your breath to get you anchored into the present moment. And it just shows the power of that. It was really lovely.
I can tell you how many times just connecting to my breath has taken me out of that super anxiety space.
Yeah, it's really powerful. What I love about it is this understanding that, one of my things is this whole we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and the human experience is fraught with all sorts of things that we get to choose. And sometimes we choose well, and sometimes we don't choose well. And sometimes it happens to us, and we get to choose how we want to show up or deal or whatever that is. And it's a constant practice. So everything that we're talking about just makes so much sense when you look at it from that perspective. And yeah, it's really exciting to be in this space and to sort of understand that and be in a position to help other people also navigate that, right?
100%. Yep.
Yeah. So Patty, what are you passionate about? Tell me a little bit about what you really.
You know what? I'm a people person. I'm an extrovert. I love being around other people. I love collaboration. I love, community and bringing people together. I would consider myself, I think I'm a pretty good networker, connecting people together. I love doing that. I had started a mastermind. I moved from Chicago to Florida just this past year, but I had started a mastermind for women entrepreneurs back there a couple of years ago. And it's so awesome to see that those women today are still connected. They're doing business with each other. They're referring each other. And to think that I brought them together. So I know that that's something that I get a charge out of that. I love that. I love blowing belief into people, and I think that came from, I remember I come from a really big, I'm Greek and Italian, and I have a very big Italian side. I've got 30 cousins, and I was the oldest grandchild. Okay. But I remember getting together at family gatherings and just always asking my cousins, what are you up to? What are you doing now? And they'd tell me, and then I'd just blow belief into them, right? What's to them? Yeah. I love that. It just feels so good, when you walk away and you feel like you left someone feeling a little better than they were before they saw you. And that could go for anybody that I speak with. I get that. I love that. That's like a natural high for me when I'm able to do that.
And you know what? I mean, think about just the power in that, because it's something that makes you feel good, but it comes from helping somebody else to really feel good about who they are,
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And I like that statement, blowing belief into somebody else. That's so cool. I love that.
I often tell my clients when we first start that I'm here and I believe, and I'm going to be blowing my belief into you until you are able to believe in yourself 100%.
That's powerful. And that's what you want. I mean, you want a coach that sees you, for who you are when you may not be seeing yourself in that way, but know enough to get a coach so that you can kind of feel that way. So that's really, really cool. Okay, so I thought you were going to tell me a little bit about your biking or something like that.
Oh, my personal journey? My personal health journey?
Oh, something like that, baby.
Yeah, that's been fun. It's been, I think it was in June when I was thinking about, how I want to be when COVID ends.
Right.
And I started to think about my weight, which had gotten to the highest it's ever been
Really? Okay.
before COVID even started. Before COVID started, I was at the highest weight I've ever been. And um, I just started to look at it from a perspective of tiny bites, like 2 pounds at a time. And 2 pounds led to 4, led to 6, and then up to 13. And I'm just super excited about that because it just tells me that anything, sometimes we look at the end, like if I would have said I want to lose 15 pounds, that's where my goal is. So I'm too away from that right now. If I would have thought that I want to lose 15 pounds, I probably would have it was too big and too far away. But when I made it like 2 pounds at a time, it really was easier, And so, yeah, my biking is something that I got back on my road bike after not being on it for like 5 years. And
can I just tell you the story of how you made that happen with your husband?
Oh gosh, hysterical, right?
I love that story.
Yeah, I kept telling him since we moved here, I kept saying, let's get our bikes tuned up and let's get back on our bikes. I would see every weekend, I'd see these big groups of road bikers, and I'm like, oh God, they look like they're having so much fun. It looks so awesome. Perfect weather, right?
Right.
Yeah. He kept kind of ignoring me, right? So I went and I took all the biking clothes off of like the top shelf where you couldn't see them, and I put them right at eye view on his shelf. And within a couple days, he noticed them there, and then one thing led to another, and
I love that because that's such a great way to just sort of like, if you want something, how can you do it in a way that it's not manipulative? It's
yeah.
It's really inspiring. I mean, that's what you do.
I don't know. I wouldn't call that manipulation. Some people might, but I thought I was being strategically planning it.
I think it's inspiring. You see those clothes in order to be inspired.
Yeah, right.
And so you strategically inspired him. And I just think that is wonderful because now you guys are enjoying that and enjoying the benefits of it. And the reason I connect is because, you live down south, I live in Tampa, and I had a bike for years and years and years. And it wasn't until I came here that I started riding it. And it's one of my pleasures. I just love getting on my bike and listening to music or listening to a book and just like,
So,
and gotta love the calorie burn for what you're putting into it. That's always a really, really good thing. All right, so 2 more questions. So, what would you say would be your biggest challenge that you've sort of overcome, and how has that helped you to be like this amazing woman that you are now?
okay, so seriously, exactly what we're talking about. Like my biggest challenge has been my own doubt and fear, and like really getting over it. Every time you hit a new level, it's a different devil. So that doubt and fear comes back, and it just gives me an opportunity to practice my tools on myself. I'm not exempt from feeling fear or feeling doubt. I just might be a few steps ahead of somebody else because I've practiced how to maneuver through it, and I don't stay stuck in it as long as I used to. I used to let fear and doubt keep paralyze me for a long time, a long, long time, like weeks, months. And I have now just come to a place of it might be a couple hours and that's it. Right. And so that's the biggest, I would say, the biggest challenge area that I know is always going to be there. And so now instead of resisting it, I'm kind of like, it's there, it's going to come. And I just need to be ready when it does to embrace it and keep moving forward.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that, when people are honest with themselves, like we all go through that, because I know that I do as well. And it might have been you actually, it might have been somebody else, but one of the things that because you've got to get support. And so the thing that sticks in my head is, well, two things. One is that I've always loved Abraham Hicks's statement of lead by example. So I strive to lead by example. So that would be one part of it. And then the second part of it is, listen, your clients are you. That's behind you. And so when you can practice this and when you feel like, okay, I'm mastering it, whatever that means, because it's always a practice, you're getting better so that you can help them.
Yeah, like I said, it used to paralyze me for a long, long time, and now it's just a few hours and I'm over it.
I know. Isn't that wonderful?
Oh my God. Oh my God, you don't even know.
Oh, I do know.
No, I think I do know. And the thing is, and this is what I tell my clients, it's like, you know what? Because when you know better, obviously you do better. When once you start shifting and you start seeing things from a different perspective and you move into this space of feeling positive energy for yourself or for whatever you're working on, why do you want to go back to the crappy negative side?
Right.
Or why do you want to stay stuck in the crappy negative side?
And it goes back to what we started with, which is this idea of embracing what is going on with you, using the tools to be able to move through it, to release it, and get back to where your joy is, because that's what it is. It's going to come up. There's no two ways about that. Okay, so last question, because we're over a little bit, which is, what do you want your legacy to be?
Yeah, to be the lighthouse of inspiration.
Oh,
for sure.
That.
Yeah, a lighthouse,
Mm-hmm.
shines that light. A lot of times we need to have that light in our life.
Yeah. And I have to tell you, Patty, from I want to say the short time, because it's been shorter in terms of us really knowing each other.
No, but don't you feel like we've known each other forever?
Oh my God, absolutely. No, seriously,
I do.
and when somebody resonates in that way, it does feel that way. I feel like I've known you for a really long time, and I can just feel like the person that you are is that. You definitely are a light, and I love your energy, and I just wish you lived closer so I could see you more often. But you'll have to tell me when you're coming back up, so hang out. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. All the people watching this, thank you.
Yeah, and I love this conversation. I think it's just so apropos for anyone who's on a journey of becoming and being their best self. This is just like so important on just like all these levels. So thank you so much. I really appreciate
you, Mate. Great to see you.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much. And as you guys know, we're using StreamYard, so at least I can't see comments. So Patty and I will go back and answer any comments that we may have had. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and for watching the replay for sure. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.